Hey, welcome back to our channel. I'm Jojo and this is Janine, and we are the youth leaders at our church, Iglesia Fuente de Vida. And today we are here to discuss a topic that we have been discussing throughout the week. And a question that came up was, can our weaknesses be our downfall in our faith? And what do you think about that?
Well, it's an incredibly weighted question, and if you guys were to ever think about it, you guys would probably need a minute to think too, and it definitely took me a minute to think, because I was like, I have to kind of weigh both sides. For me, at least, my answer was sort of yes and no. Can our weaknesses be our downfall in our faith? Yes and no, I believe. I feel that our weaknesses can lead us to Christ, but our weaknesses can also make us stray away from Christ. And it kind of works in both forms. So it really depends on the person and their mindset and how they're taking it in, how the status in their relationship and how it's working out. And you can automatically tell if you're strong with God or if you're not strong with God, whether you're talking to him or you're not. It's like how you are with a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Whether you guys are talking, whether you guys are going out, whether he's treating you right, if he's respecting you, and vice versa. And you know automatically you're receiving that from God, but are you doing the same with God? And is what you're doing hurting God? And that's kind of thinking of it from that perspective, putting yourself in God's feet and how he's feeling and reacting to what you're doing and how you feel in the things you do.
Yeah, not a lot of us are conscious too in our what we do, I guess you can say, like in our actions. That's better to say. That we don't think of what God would think of what we're doing in a moment. Not a lot of us have that kind of second to pause and wait and say, oh, is this gonna help me in the future, or is this gonna weaken my my path going along the way? If that makes sense.
And it's interesting because I actually read something last night where it talked about how your relationship with God is not always going to be comfortable. The thing that God calls you to do, your purpose in life, will not always be comfortable for you. And I remember writing this down. Yeah, and it's funny because you can actually be happy even when you're uncomfortable. And people don't realize that because they're too scared to take that leap of faith in what God has called us to do. But God has already instilled in us so many great things, and it even implies, like, I guess for an example for me, I wasn't really the most talkative person, never the really most social person, and still sort of struggling with it. But especially in high school, that was really a struggle for me. And never in my wildest dreams would I ever think I would go in front of a camera, in front of YouTube, speak, like even in person, beyond the quarantine, talk about it, even become a leader in my church. Like beyond my wildest dreams, I never would have thought I would have been able to do that. But in that weakness that I had, I found strength, and now I feel more confident and feel more drawn towards being in ministry even beyond these years that we have. And I feel like a lot of people can deal with certain things like that, whether they're dealing with anxiety or they're dealing with different weaknesses in life, whether they feel like they aren't strong enough to do something. And a lot of people feel that way, and people aren't ready to take that leap of faith and be like, okay, well, you know what, maybe I should do it. Maybe I should push past my limits, push past that fear that I have, because weakness is rooted in fear.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, it is. And, like, even this Bible verse, I've read this Bible verse before, and I came back to it, Philippians 4:12, saying, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Yeah. And that's definitely within this, too. I can do everything, even any weakness that you have. You just read that, and you ask him to give you that strength. Because I remember those stories that my grandma tells me that she was trembling and all of that. And then she just asked God to calm her nerves and give her the strength. And then you just feel right then. Even me singing on the pulpit, being in front of everyone, that's frightening for me. Even like there would be times that I would just even forget the words, and you bet that I would be up there next Sunday singing just as if I had not forgotten the words last Sunday. But when we start to ask God every single day, he'll give us that strength, like you were saying, like maybe even public speaking, right?
Yeah, public speaking is the number one fear.
Like, even in high school too, I did not talk in class. There was very often I did not like speaking. But then when I went to college, it was totally the opposite. I would be so good at talking in class, giving that speech. I got an 100. Like, she was like, you were so good. I love talking. How you were so loving, and you kind of showed that you cared for it.
Yeah.
And that you were able to talk. You didn't stutter. You didn't do anything. You knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how that happens too, when you start to ask God to kind of change that within you, to give you strength and to aid you through that process. Because even for me, what I'm trying to put and say through all of that is that God will give you the strength if you ask for it.
Yeah. And it's funny because people don't realize it, but our weaknesses can be our greatest strengths.
Yes.
If only we take that leap of faith. Because God has placed, like, the best things for us when we go past that fear. I know I wrote that down. I wrote that word for word down. But, like, it's important to find, like, a way to go past our fear. And for many people can't really just open up the Bible and talk to God. Sometimes it may take a conversation. It is hard. And sometimes it may take, like, a conversation with a friend. Maybe even it's beyond that. It's
or
more
even just opening a video or following someone. Simple follow, a simple like. Or
seeing encouragement.
Even on Instagram, you see something and you like something. Or even you send it to a friend, or you follow a pastor or a church to hear more about that. That's just you stepping into that. Oh, like it says in Psalm 34:17-20, it says, when the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all of their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. And I kind of like that, how he said, Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. And many, probably, I don't know, but maybe some are feeling like they don't know what it is. Or they're kind of feeling lost without their faith. That maybe their faith was so good that they were all about their faith. And then out of nowhere, just something happened. Maybe something crazy happened and they lost their faith right then and there in that moment. And they felt like that crushed, that brokenhearted type of thing. Kind of wandering, kind of doing maybe even the worldly things. And they just kind of lost their path. And maybe they're trying to set foot back onto the right path. You know, trying to find their footing. But can't seem to do it right. And yeah, and so that's why I kind of like that God is here. He's here to help you. He keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. And I like that, saying that he'll mend you. He'll take that weakness and make it your strength.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about that verse, is that he'll mend you in any way.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like it is important to identify what our weaknesses are in order to find that.
Oh yeah.
Because without it, you are going to be lost. You're going to kind of have you're not really going to know what's going on. And if you ever feel that in a relationship with like a partner, you feel those sort of sentiments and you're kind of like, well, I don't know what to do now.
Well, even with yourself, and that's the first thing too, before you should get in a relationship, you should hit that first before ever getting into that relationship.
And they talk about
because
that,
it can ruin it later on in the future, saying, well, you know, shoot. Well, but that's also the good thing, like what you're going to say, right, is that you're going to fix it. You found it out, and during that relationship, maybe that relationship helped you figure out what was missing or what was broken.
Well, yeah, that, and also it even talks about in the Bible, even before getting into a relationship, especially even with God, they talk about this in counting your cost. And understanding what you have to do in order to pursue that relationship with God. And sometimes that is identifying your weaknesses and confronting your weakness. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But in order to have great things and have a good relationship with God, you do need to identify that. And it's super hard for all of us. We all have struggles with weaknesses. And I feel like hopefully this encourages some people to kind of think about this and the things they struggle with and how to approach them. If you are struggling with something, you definitely can come to us and we will guide you as best as we can. And
And I don't think I answered the question earlier, but what I think is that, like you said, it's a yes and no type of thing, that our weaknesses can strengthen us over time, that it'll build to that strength. It'll be our strength. And that God will help us, because public speaking wasn't my strength. It was my weakness, and that became my strength of being able to talk to the youth, or being able to talk to anybody that needed it, that needed that clarification or just that clarity in that one moment in their life. And I've had people come to me and talk to them about their faith, or maybe they're struggling in their relationship with their other partner. And, you know, it's hard. I get it. That, you know, that weakness can really hold you down. Like, that weakness is pure, whatever, but it's hard. And it'll really drag you down and really maybe defeat you and maybe make you feel like you can't do it. That it's been your weakness for so long that you don't know anything else. Like, that's going to stay in your weakness. But many don't think, maybe I'll turn that weakness into my strength. You know?
Yeah. And in reality, everyone's story, and I have this written down, our story will have more suffering. We'll not have more suffering. We'll have suffering, but also have endless riches. So people need to understand that not everything will be picture perfect, especially in a relationship with Christ. It won't always be the greatest. We all fall short. We all have weaknesses. But in reality, if we confront them with God, we will have endless riches, like it said.
Yeah.
And it talks about that in pretty much the whole chapter of Philippians, and where in which you guys heard about having strengthened, which Christ strengthens us. So pretty much the whole chapter is God or Christ fueling our faith. So always rooting ourselves in God will help us in every way possible, and will allow us to confront our weaknesses, our issues, using the strength that God has. We don't even rely on our own strength. We rely on God's strength. And that will help us, keep us going, not only in our relationship with Christ, but in our relationship with other people, with our families, with our friends. Going about life, you confront all your issues relying on the strength that God has, not that we have.
Yeah, like I was hearing in my school, in my class, that I was hearing my professor speak, and he said, if you're so comfortable with God, then you truly don't know God, because you should be struggling, you should be yearning to know more about him, because the more you learn about him, the more confusing he gets, and the more that you're going to be like, what did I just read? Because this isn't the God that I knew. This isn't like, your whole world is flipped upside down. And you just start yearning for more and wanting to know more. And with God, it's a growing thing. You feel like you're you're like, oh, I'm good. Like, I know God, all of that. And then the floor is, like, the rug is swept out of your feet. And you feel like, what just happened? And that's the thing with God, but it keeps going up. It's never going down. And I like that. I remember that with business. Like, it's always going up.
Yeah.
It never goes, there will be a little bit, but it's always rising. And that's the same thing with your faith. It'll always rise.
If you stay rooted in God, especially, it will be really hard. And that's why we say no, that our weaknesses can make us stray from God. So it's important, and we try to emphasize the importance of leaning on God and on our faith, taking time out of your day to kind of reflect and see, okay, what am I truly struggling with, and how can I combat that? How can I not be so sad? How can I not be so mad about this? How can I not be whatever you're struggling with? And the best way to do it is first identifying it.
And I feel like that's hard for some people, because that's setting their pride aside and saying that they're not perfect. And some people don't want to admit that they're not perfect, or that, they don't want to admit it out loud. Maybe they know they're not perfect, but their pride is having them set it aside and not being able to say it out loud, saying, I'm not, I got my flaws, but some people aren't willing to admit that out loud, or even to somebody, even to themselves, they aren't willing to say that out loud, saying, I have flaws, So leave in the comments on what you think on this subject.
And we highly recommend you guys like and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want, you guys can push the notifications, so whenever we upload, which we'll upload pretty much every Sunday at 10:45 a.m., right before our church's 11 a.m. service. So We hope you guys join us again next time. We hope you guys enjoyed this video today. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.